This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever think about switching insurance companies to see if you could save some cash? Progressive makes it easy to see if you could save when you bundle your home and auto policies. Try it at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states.
You know, I think more often than not, people get in trouble because they can't get out of their own way or they get in their own way. And this concept of work-life balance, I think, is kind of flawed because just the visualization of trying to balance is always skeptical, right? But harmony, right? Harmony is in music, it's in food, it's in relationships. We have good and bad, we have highs and lows. And ideally, if we can kind of harmonize, and that's where I think, again, to your credit, if you don't know, seek to understand and then bring in and incorporate other assets, materials, and that's how you ultimately, nobody just wants a system, right? Nobody just wants a book. Nobody just wants to learn or to be taught. We want a solution, right? And solutions in their very nature fix a problem, help with an opportunity, right? They generate something that's not just visceral, but it's real.
Step into the world of success with your brand amplified, the ultimate podcast designed to unravel the intricacies of thriving businesses. I'm your host, Annika Jackson, and I'm on a mission to uncover the stories, strategies, and secrets that have propelled entrepreneurs and business leaders to success.
And to that point, you talk about leaders needing to play three different roles: architect, builder, and custodian of their companies. So can you talk to us a little bit more about that? Is there one that's more important than the others? And what happens if a leader doesn't have all three?
Yeah. So in moments, there are 40 moments, and 33 are really what I call EQ: how to set good boundaries, how to overcome conflict, how to embrace the dynamics of how to feel and think and be. The first three are, thank you for saying that, architect, builder, custodian. And that's really the concept of, if you are going to build, run, and grow a great company, it's like having a house. And a house has a foundation. It has wood and brick and metal and plumbing and HVAC systems, right? And then in addition, as it should, to become a home, it needs humans. And humans want food and art and clothing. You follow me? And so the whole concept is, think like an architect, builder, custodian. Don't just think like an entrepreneur who's trying to make money and build something great because my ego wants it. And you ask which one of the three? Well, I'm going to tell you what my mommy and daddy love the most, and that's custodian. And again, back to my story with my mom and dad growing up, the fact that they love custodian, right? Leave things better than you found them. Clean up, put things away. You with me? And so you put those three together. Now, I wrote it for, again, entrepreneurs, founders, and leaders, but I also wrote it to give insight to the contributors, to the employees, to the people in front of the line, so that they have an appreciation when they see these suits walk by and, what do they do, right? So it's this two-way street. And then the next four moments are, to your point, leadership, management, teamwork, and accountability. And then from there, everything else is, again, more around EQ versus IQ. You follow me? Help other people overcome. So that was the whole purpose. So I happen to rally around concepts, tools, and disciplines. And I think if you embrace the concept of that stewardship, not just the fiduciary governance of building, running, but that stewardship, that your business should be like a home and the humans in it are important. And I get it. Today, because of AI and a lot of things, sadly, a lot of jobs are going away. But ideally, between the employer and the employees, we're dealing from reality. And the reality is that, yes, there's going to be some major workforce recalibration, to use that word. And I think it's a responsibility for both the workers and the employers to be realistic and to find that groove between, I need to do what's best for the entity to make payroll, and then the individuals need to know that they got to do what's best for them and their families.
Yeah. Well, I think obviously the best, I shouldn't say obviously, because I play in all these worlds. AI is one of them. I love building an AI, but I want good people to manage the systems and processes because they're not foolproof, right? So I'd rather build AI systems that I can train my team on, that they can use to make their work more efficient and flow, but with human oversight. For instance, I wouldn't just have this interview be completely edited by AI, posted on social media without knowing exactly what clips are being posted. Are the names all spelled correctly? Any of that. We need that oversight. And I think that's where we're going to see job growth, is what the jobs of the past, many of those entry-level jobs are going to go away perhaps, but they'll be reframed
Yeah,
So,
well, a lot of businesses talk about TQM, and you've got concepts like ISO and Lean and 5 nines. And I think, I've been in tech for 40 years. And so don't blame me, but I've seen a lot of the efficiencies and effectiveness that some would say, hey, that's screwing up paychecks and payroll.
uh,
But I truly believe, and one of my moments in there is called the 10-80-10. And if you're an owner and one of the leaders and you are running a great company that's got good systems and structure, and you know who you are, what you do, why you do it, you got the right people in the right seats, all that good stuff, then ideally that part of your business, which is the 80% that's getting done to ship, sell, market, produce, that should liberate you to then take your 80% and put 40% to that first 10% of any company, which is what? Sales and marketing, innovation. Where's the puck going? Keeping your head up and making sure you don't get bushwhacked or stub your toe, right? And then the other 40% goes in the back end. The time it takes to say thank you. Would you like some more? And to coach up your people and to support them and think about employee engagement and doing the right thing. So there's the beauty. And I think once you do that, because as goes the leader, so goes the rest. Let's just say that AI and systems and everything does. Give me a leap of faith here, because I believe that we have it. But if on average, and stats throughout the high, throughout the low, but if on average an organization between AI, good systems, and all the things you should be doing, everybody gets on average 10 to 15% more time back in their life. I said it earlier, then a third goes back into the company, reinvest it, grow, do things, learn. A third goes back into the individual, become better and more confident, courageous, and humble, and curious, and all these things, right? And then a third goes into whatever you want. I'm very sincere about that. So I think there's a new deal coming down the road, Annika, right? And yeah, sure, we've got a bunch of business owners and companies that won't listen to this podcast because they're grumpy and they're stuck in their ways, right? But one of my real favorite moments, if I could say so, Darwin. We've all heard of Darwin, right? A lot of people get Darwin wrong. They think Darwin said survival of the strongest. No, it's survival of the fittest, right? And so one of my moments is on adaptability and how to adapt and adopt, because that's what we've all got to do. And as you can see in the moments, everything's very visual. So I spent a lot of time with my design team. So, back to adaptability. How did a giraffe become a giraffe and why? Right? This guy was once upon a time a little bug. And then it said, hey, to win out, to grow, to continue to be who I am, I'm going to grow my neck, get some long legs to fend off the bad guys, eat the fruit up here, right? So again, you got to have a little fun with this. A little gamification is what we talk about because we use AI in it. But yeah, how do we adapt and adopt? And that's what hopefully, thanks to your podcast and others that are genuinely sharing because they care, not just because there's monetization in it. And let's be honest, it's an end both. We get it. But that's what I hope for, is that people start to get their head around this end both. Systems, AI, it's going nowhere. In fact, we need to get better, not because of job insecurity, you ready, but because of job security.
100%. Yeah.
Because if us humans don't continue to progress, next thing you know, it will be like the Terminator and HAL and Odyssey 2000, right? We don't want that. So we all got to get equally better, truly. And that's ideally a mantra, purpose, cause, passion that tomorrow's and today's leaders embrace. And it's not easy, right? I get it, but it's still something we should pursue.
To me, it's really exciting because I'm able to build systems and processes using AI that I wouldn't have been able to do as quickly and have that time back to reinvest in other areas of, okay, who needs more training, or what other systems we need to set up, or how many more people do I want to coach this month, and all of those different aspects. To that point, you have 70 coaches, did you say?
Yeah, give or take. I know it sounds a little, I can't keep track, but we actually have a program now at the Indy Chamber, Cummins Engine, IU. So we've actually got, and that was always the intent. The Academy was really, when I started Boss Up, really with strong suggestions from other people, because I was actually going to kind of not work on Mondays and Fridays, early retirement. And that's what Straticos, which is the parent company of Boss Up, was my own independent consulting company where I worked with hundreds of companies, did 10,000 sessions, poured myself into it. But it was all me, myself, and I. And so somebody said, hey, why don't you liberate this, democratize it, let other people come in. And so, yeah, now we work with independent business coaches, teachers, genuinely. And through the Boss Up Coaching Solution Academy, they have access to world-class, innovative, tailorable, programmatic tools, materials, guidebooks, and support. I've got a team of humans that are there to support as well. And so it was interesting. I launched it in November 3 years ago, and I was just trying to come up with some of your marketing. You'll get it. I'm like, what would be a fun tagline for the why? And Rudolph's Red-Nosed Reindeer came on TV. And if you remember the TV show, Rudolph runs away, Kirby runs away. Kirby wants to be a dentist, not an elf. Rudolph frustrated with his red nose. And they meet each other in the woods and they tell their stories. And they say, yeah, I'm running away to be independent. And they kind of liked each other. They realized, hey, we're not actually born to be independent. So they both said, let's be independent together. And that's kind of our mantra. We're not a franchise. It's a membership community. You come in, it's a monthly, and you have access to all this wonderful material to generate impact and income for you and your clients. And if you like it, stick around. If you don't, adios amigo. And again, we're a social enterprise. So all the proceeds from the book go to fund under-resourced entrepreneurial organizations. And I've been blessed to have seen real hardcore corporate world and a lot of bureaucracies and red tape. I've also been blessed to see too many startups and young people who are, and I get it, enamored with the why and the purpose, cause, passion, but they haven't really figured out the difference between or know what a P&L is versus a BLT. And so, like most things in life, it's an and both, right? And I do think this is a wave that others have started before me. But again, it's kind of ideally, it's an approach that is in its time and its prime, a lot, again, because of post-COVID, hybrid workforces, these kooky 20-somethings coming in the workforce. Very honestly, us Gen X are the coolest, best thing that ever happened next to the greatest generation. The darn millennials are screwing everything up because they're the trophy guys. Have this damned if you do, damned if you don't. But I actually have tremendous
who screwed up the millennials?
I would tremendous faith in the 20-somethings. We do a lot of studies. I've got analysts on my team. We've got software that surveys things now with AI. But believe it or not, the 20-somethings coming in really do want what comes with Boss Up. They do want structure. They do want to understand their roles and accountabilities. They will and accept goals and some of these other things, right? It's the generation before that's supposed to be their bosses and managers that are getting frustrated because they're not setting good agreement-based commitments. They're not explaining what the definition of success looks like because they kind of, I'm just going to be honest, phoned it in a little bit. Now, I'm having some fun with figure pointing on generations. But again, if you have the right humility and courage and gratitude, you can figure out how to get from here to there because you don't have to your point earlier, Annika. And this is why a lot of people say, and I'm going to say something that's a little vulnerable. Why do I share so much stuff that historically has been considered IP, intellectual property? Well, this was pre-AI. And I said, and I didn't like the way Zuckerberg said it when he was in Congress, where he said, basically, you older people don't get that the younger people have a different definition of privacy, of confidentiality, right? I think we all got to be careful in that. But there's no doubt that if you think you have an innovative idea that the other people don't have and you can't download it and search it and AI it, chances are you're thinking incorrectly, right? And so that goes back to why it's so important, Annika, to have good systems, to know what you're doing, because 68% of our GDP comes from companies that don't have something that's singularly unique. They have basically something that the other people have. They just do it better.
Yeah.
They do it smarter. And they have this fusion of what we're talking about today, head and heart, right? Purpose and profit, passion and process, right? Put those things together. And that's how you can rock and roll coochie coo in a company that doesn't necessarily have something that other people don't have. And by the way, you ready? That includes you as an individual. Back to my first book, Level Up, and the importance of personal branding. It's not because of grift. It's not because of ego. It's because of, if you're out there competing with somebody else, ideally you want to win, and you want to win that opportunity, knowing that there's competition. It's like the old joke about the two people running through the woods, being chased by the bear, and the one person slows down to tie up their shoes, and the other guy says, "You won't outrun that bear." He's like, "I don't have to outrun the bear. I just got to outrun you." Now, again, that's a little graphic. I hope nobody gets eaten by bears, but the moral of the story is, don't be overly humble, coy, or I'm even going to use the word disrespectful about the importance of personal accountability.
Yeah.
And again, thanks to you and the show, I think that's a big part of the inspiration is, hey, if I don't know, I need to go seek. And once I seek, I need to take. And once I take, I need to do something with it and apply it. And ultimately down the road, verify that it's generated some positive results.
Yeah. One of my favorite things about meeting my amazing guests like yourself is that I'm giving my, the audience takeaways, but I'm also writing things down as we're talking. I'm going to listen back to this episode and I'm going to go, okay, this is something that I want to focus on for this week or this day or this moment to make myself a little bit better so that I can be a better leader of my team, a better manager, and pour into them because I know they're going to pour back into me and the investment that I'm making.
So to your point, thank you for that, because again, it might say lead with Scott as the .com, but the whole lead with Scott also has a URL, lead with moments. So if you go there, Annika, very sincerely, again, another example of share, irrespective of validated monetization. So big fan of working with schools, not-for-profit, under-resourced. So if you go to Lead with Scott, there's videos, there's materials, you can download even framework to my keynote that, for its worth, some companies and organizations pay quite a bit of money for. But, again, back to the concept, if not the technical parameters of a social enterprise. And so, yes, ideally, we've all heard the pay it forward line, right? But, I think more often than not, people get in trouble because they can't get out of their own way or they get in their own way. And this concept of work-life balance, I think, is kind of flawed because just the visualization of trying to balance is always skeptical, right? But harmony, right? Harmony is in music, it's in food, it's in relationships. We have good and bad, we have highs and lows. And ideally, if we can kind of harmonize, and that's where I think, again, to your credit, if you don't know, seek to understand and then bring in and incorporate other assets, materials, and that's how you ultimately, nobody just wants a system, right? Nobody just wants a book. Nobody just wants to learn or to be taught. We want a solution, right? And solutions in their very nature fix a problem, help with an opportunity, right? They generate something that's not just visceral, but it's real. You with me? We don't get an education just to get an education ideally. Certainly, it's to learn and to aspire and to be more intelligent and to hopefully get a better job, or at least the job that you have that you don't love, you're still really good at it, right? But you don't result in a result and you don't drift into failure. They all require moments. And that's why Lead with Moments is all about that, right? The power of moments and how you take moments to momentum. And if you do it all right, Annika, by the end of your career or wherever, and whatever happens when you leave this planet, you can look back and say those moments went to momentum and that created a momentous experience, a momentous life, a momentous company. That's what we're looking for.
I honestly feel like we're recording a TED Talk right now, except with me interjecting every once in a while. But I want to ask, because you give everybody so much through your system, Boss Up, through the books that we can read and work through as workbooks and the videos and all the other materials. What's a piece of leadership advice somebody gave you that really resonated or has stuck with you?
Well, it's actually one of the moments in the book, and it's a word. You can see I've been on a few shows and stages.
Yep.
So I talk about, I had a midlife crisis not too long ago. And instead of getting a Porsche or buying a condo in the Bahamas, I started getting tattoos and I started a podcast about 7 years ago called Moments to Momentum. But I've been accused of, when I was younger, and I used to have a moniker because I was a pretty high profile, both for good reasons, bad reasons. The bad reason ultimately created the Icarus factor. I raised a lot of money and was overly popular, and then it came crashing down, and that was certainly humbling. But I always kind of I had that entrepreneurial shit, right? Zig, zag, move, boom, bang, bop, rock'em, sock'em, left hook, right hook, upper hook. And my dad was always poised. And when I look at all the heroes, and I've worked for I've only had 3 bosses, but I worked with a lot of people I don't want to emulate that didn't. And so the word that I have, and it's actually a moment in the book, is poise. And poise is just this, again, blend of don't get too high, don't get too low. Neither a cynic nor an optimist be. Practice positive pragmatism. It's not an either or, it's an and both. And so poise is my mantra, just to, again, be present. I know I'm doing a lot of talking here today. Thanks, Annika. I'm kind of, believe it or not, there's a little hack in psychology and sociology. It's called empty and flood. And when people like me who have a few thoughts want to share, when we do what we do, about 85% might sound like the teacher and Snoopy, womp, 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 right? But 1 or 2 nuggets or gems are going to come through. It's like panning for gold. And so believe it or not, there's actually a reason why I kind of take liberty with you and kind of tuck in a few of the gems and nuggets, is that people might not remember 92%, but one or two things pop to the surface and they can put it in their pocket. So back to poise. Poise just is that wonderful word that says be centered, be present, not too fast, not too slow. You follow me? And so I really started to embrace that right when I started Straticos. And Straticos has been a great entity. I won't tell you the numbers, but I've worked with hundreds of companies. I've been blessed to hang out and see a lot of people. Before that, I had a pretty good career. And I'd say front and center to my leadership approach is poise. And then in poise, right, you respect systems and soul. You respect purpose and profit. You respect me and you. It's a two-way street. So that's my word. I got other ones too, and other songs and movies.
I'm sure.
I'm a big music movie buff. It's kind of how I turn off my brain. I even think when I sleep, but music and movies are like my catnip. It sort of makes me, So yeah, but poise is my mantra, and it's central to the way that I approach habits and work and life, is to just find that groove that makes sure that I'm not, again, getting too extreme on one end or the other. And as you can see in our country right now, right, I actually think 95% of our society wants poise. We're just hijacked by a couple of extremists on the left and the right. And, we got 350 something Americans. And so that still leaves millions of kooky people that are extremist or, don't have taste. They support the New England Patriots or like the St. Louis Cardinals. I mean, sometimes there's just no talent for taste.
I'm glad none of my teams are
I'm an indie, so I'm a Chicago kid and an indie resident. So we'll have a little fun on that one.
Yeah.
What about you? Thank you for asking. I prefer to ask, by the way, like you do when I coach and I teach. I'm a 20% talker, 80% listener, but you've got a lot of guests on here. What would you say? What's your answer? Both because Annika sees it that way, but if you were to be like a Annika AI, you believe in seeing, and then this is what you've heard. What would be your answer?
Oh, I couldn't even answer that right now.
Wait a minute, you're putting me on the spot and I turn the tables and put you on the, I'm just having fun.
Yeah. I go back to a couple things, and it's really, I was on an interview yesterday for somebody else's podcast, and I do the same thing. I have a lot to say. They could ask me one tiny question and I'll go on for however long they'll let me. But everything I do is about creating community, creating value, that people see that they have value and that they are being the best version of themselves. And that I can help them see that, whether it's they listen to the podcast and get great advice from my guests, listen to a podcast I was on, use my Delphi clone, or go through, they're a student of mine at the campus, or they're going through coaching and consulting with me. And so that's really, it is my why, but it's also, I know that it's something I'm good, it's my ikigai spot. So something I'm skilled at, that I'm passionate about, and that I can make money at as well. And so all of those things really drive me. And I always try to lead with kindness as well. That's been my mantra forever. Be kind whenever possible. It is always possible. And so I guess that would be my piece of leadership advice. I don't think somebody on my podcast gave that to me. I'm pretty sure I read it in one of many books, right? I mean, it's the Dalai Lama. And that just has always stuck with me, is that we always have to take those moments to see others for who they are. Or if we can't see them in a moment of shame or pain or whatever the case may be, we can take that step back to recenter ourselves, to get back in that poised state that you're talking about.
I love it.
And
to your credit, you said ikigai, you pronounce it correctly. A lot of people read that word and they go, I don't get it, right? And so and I would say, by the way, I have a tattoo here that's a blend of Christianity, and actually it's got Zen and Buddhist sentiment about being centered and meditation. And I believe prayer and meditation go together. I'd like to add something, if I may, given what you said. And I believe you used a word that sparked me, kindness. And there's a difference between kindness and nice. Nice is irrespective of challenge and conflict and boundaries. I think one of the reasons why we have such dysfunction, both in our personal and professional lives, is we really, on average, a lot of people aren't very good at what I just said, conflict, boundaries. And counterintuitive, and this is where I go back to systems, counterintuitive to the average person. The better systems and systemized you are, it actually liberates you to be more empathetic, back to authenticity and collaboration. In fact, because of what's going on in the world, one of my moments in here is safe. Because we all hear this word, I don't feel safe. Are you safe? Agency. I get this and I love it as concepts. but it's flawed to a degree. It's a little bit like the golden rule, even in the Bible. And I've gotten in trouble for this, for saying it. I think it should be about the more golden rule, because the golden rule says treat people the way you want to be treated. Again, what if you're a knucklehead who thinks the Patriots and the Cardinals are the best team and there's no change in your opinion? You with me? Opinions like belly buttons, we all have them. So we got to find how to have that middle ground. And I've been in sessions very sincerely where somebody has said, and I know what I'm doing. I got a PhD in this. And they say, hey, I don't feel safe. You're challenging my agency. And I said, I appreciate that. It's kind of like the LEAP, right? There's a LEAP model: listen, empathize, agree, partner. And I know how to, I got these frameworks too. But even after that's done, they still shut down and say, I say, well, you're part of this leadership team. And so if you're not willing to explain why you don't feel safe and how to overcome it, how is that fair to the other people? You with me? Back to, again, I hate to say it, the whole cancel thing. And just because you're blue or green or red, I'm shutting down. That's a problem, right? And so we got to deal with this head on. And so I love what you just said. And I think that word kindness is different. Kindness does say, hey, you got spinach in your teeth. And I'm not, you know how many times I've walked in a room very sincerely, and it's kind of my style, but I swear to God, it just happened. Gosh, I did a talk and I went up to the CEO. They had breakfast, and I'm not kidding. He had something on his face, and his team's been with him for 15 minutes. And I walk in and go, hey, John, you got something there. He's like, why didn't anybody tell me that? Well, and I did tell him later, I said, it's because people are either afraid of you, they're intimidated, they think they should be nice, not kind. But how does somebody not speak up to a teammate and say, hey, you kind of made a mistake here. Hey, I love you, but you got to be careful on the way you're presenting yourself. You follow me? And so I think that's another thing, especially with AI and systemization. Ideally, if we are going to free up ourselves, have more time and energy, and we can invest in good learning and development, let's help people. And this is what schools and colleges, let's be honest, really aren't doing a lot of, right? Call it what you will, the EQ versus the IQ. In the end of the day, we want balance and harmony. So yeah, I love what you said, and I would just emphasize the word kind over nice, and you should be able to explain why. When people say and use agency or safe as excuses, but they're not willing to share, how do we learn? How do we get better? How do we know? How do I overcome? Should I now just get divorced and leave and quit and shut down? That's a bummer. I'm almost kind of an activist on that these days, right? At the end of the day, like most things in life, it's an end both. I love all those words, especially conceptually. But if we can't ultimately also incorporate tools and disciplines to be our best at both receiving and giving, then how do we get from here to there? So thank you for that, because I love the word kind. And again, I think I've got it. Volume 2 is coming out. Volume 1 is called Catalyst. Volume 2 is called Advantage. And Advantage gets a little bit more into this, right? A little bit more, almost, that's some kind of mystical Jedi, Buddhist, Christian kind of. And I think that's one of the things that we can do today because of good systems and AI. Back to freeing ourselves up. I get a lot of people want instant gratification and just the facts and Joe Friday, but that's easy stuff now. You with me? That's table stakes. Now we can invest in depth and agency and understanding and empathy and all these words, because we are being so much more accentuated because of what AI and good tech and automation and systems can do for us.
Wow. I can't even go through every little nugget that you gave us today, Scott, as the end cap for our interview, I can already tell, one of many discussions.
I was told we were on for 3 hours. What's going on? I thought this was like a Rogan ask. No, I'm just kidding. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. No, we'll definitely have you back on. That's not even a question. What is the best source of truth for people to your books, your podcast, the Boss Up System, connect with you on LinkedIn?
Yeah. So to your point about this conversation, I think my most, if I may, vulnerable, authentic, live out loud is Instagram. Scott Abbott, ABC. Watch some videos of me, everything from giving speeches and being in rooms to dropping and doing push-ups and talking about my fasting and my many flaws and how I try to overcome them. Scott Abbott ABC is also my handle for LinkedIn and Twitter. I wrote a book for IBM called The Co-Factor, and I did a 28-city tour over 18 months to help them launch a technology that they've since sold. And we did a lot through Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And believe it or not, I've got about 45,000 connections today, but I had about 65,000 on Facebook because that was the platform we did everything through it. And it just basically ruined my life. So I shut down it. Now it's just friends and family. And even though sometimes I got friends and family, aren't I that close? I'm like, no, Facebook's very, very limited. I'm also ScottAbbottABC.com. So ABC is Architect, Builder, Custodian, because that's my mantra: Architect, Builder, Custodian of prosperous leadership, companies, and growth. And then we've got this, if I can say so myself, back to the books, Boss Up Moments, Boss Up the Blue, which is on Amazon. We've also got our YouTube channel that has all the videos that are in the book. So that's all free. Please go out there and subscribe, and you can use that. And then my latest passion, and very sincerely, it's more purposeful than anything, is leadwithscott.com. And so I'm trying to get into as many schools and organizations and conferences. Again, so much at the heart of this conversation, Annika, to bring in the right temperament and leadership systems, this fusion of the realities of today, but to get all humans, I call it humanization, to the next level of goodness. So that's really where I'm spending a lot of this year, is on Lead with Scott. Last year was on Boss Up Moments, getting up and out there. Year before was on building and putting into the world the Boss Up Coaching Solution Academy. So yeah, that's what I'm about. And that's where you can go find me and connect.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I have really loved this conversation. I love going down lots of, I can't even call them rabbit holes for this conversation, but I love seeing where a few words will lead. And you have definitely taken us on many journeys. So for those of you who are listening to this episode, watching it, Scott is definitely somebody I recommend everybody reach out to immediately.
You're too kind. By the way, how many students do you have in your class?
Depends. I teach several classes.
Uh-huh.
So
how many students in total are you teaching?
Let's say 80, perhaps.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, do me a favor.
Yeah.
Do me a favor, back to a bit of a social enterprise. Send me your address offline and I'll ship you a box of Moments books. And my only kind of quid pro quo is, again, there's some videos out there, but maybe you could say, hey, we did this podcast. And, I consider these to be, I don't like the word philanthropy. I prefer, humanistic capitalism and investments. But very sincerely, I think, I don't know how many come in a box, 20, 25. I'll ship you out a box, and please share that with the good folks in your school and your classes. Use it how you will, but I'd be happy to send that over to you. Okay.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And thank you to everybody who is watching this episode, listening to it. I'll be back again with another amazing guest to share their story and their journey with you.
Thanks for listening or watching to this episode of Your Brand Amplified. Don't forget to leave us a rating or review on your favorite podcast listening platform. And if you want to learn more, check us out at yourbrangamplified.com.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.
If you're serious about leadership, legacy, and building wealth with structure, you need to check out the CJ Moneyway Show. Hosted by CJ Moneyway, this podcast features powerful conversations with entrepreneurs, doctors, strategists, and global thought leaders who break down what it really takes to win without losing your integrity. This isn't surface motivation. It's discipline, clarity, execution. If you're ready to think bigger, build smarter, and lead with intention, tap into the CJ Moneyway Show, available wherever you get your podcasts.